But I want us to turn to James 5, verses 14 to 16. Whether you have the New International Version or the New American Standard Bible, or whether you have the King James Version, I will be reading from the King James Version. And there's a reason why I want to read from the King James Version. Verse 14. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up. And if he has committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. Confess your faults one to another, and pray for one another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And there's a reason why I said I wanted to read from the King James Version, because that last sentence is not in the Bible that you're looking at right now. And I was wondering, why would it be different? Because the one that you're looking at says the effective prayer of a righteous man can accomplish much. But I wanted to look at this one because when I read this in the King James Version, I was wondering why there would be two adjectives followed by a verb. Why would James have written it in the sense that he had? Saying effectual, fervent prayer. Now we understand that prayer is a do word. It's something that we actually have to do. We must purpose ourselves to it. And I had spoken about this before. You purpose yourself to go to that inner chamber and to talk to God. It is something that you do. Now, why would this author now use two descriptive words to talk about the prayer that you must do? And so I wanted to get a picture of this and try to get an understanding of it. And I looked at the book of James, and I wanted to get an understanding what the book of James was about. And I saw three key things in the book of James. It speaks about the patient perseverance during trials and temptations. In other words, how do we live our lives as Christians? And where's our faith in the lives which we live? It means being patient on a daily basis or being patient on an hourly basis, to be doing what we as Christians know best, to persevere in the face of many difficulties and afflictions because of our faith. And not only because of our faith, but also because of our knowledge that there will be a better outcome. But also because of that faith, knowing that if the outcome is not what we desire, we will accept that outcome because that could be God's outcome for us. And the second point that he was raising is that we must live consistently with what they as Christians, they must live consistently according to what they as Christians have learned, being Christians, being in Christ. So us, living consistently what we have learned. He wants us to mature in our faith in Christ by living what we say we believe. And then the third one is that he encourages believers to humbly live by godly wisdom rather than by worldly wisdom, and to pray in all situations. So I was thinking to myself, so that is why it was so important for James to overstress the importance of this type of prayer. With the words effectual, fervent, and then he says, availeth much. Now it means we're going to get out quite a lot if we do the following. And what is it that we ought to be doing? The word effectual is an adjective. It means effective, successful, powerful, productive, constructive, all these modern words which we use. But in law, it also means valid and binding. So this thing says that which is valid and binding that you are doing now, which is powerful, which is productive, it is constructive, This is what you should be doing. And in my attempt to try to understand this again, why are there two adjectives? I searched a bit more. And I actually noticed that the word effectual, now you will note the word there is effectual and not the word effective. That the word effectual in the Greek, Old Greek, meant two things. It could have been either an adjective or as a verb. But in English, for us, it's an adjective. It's a descriptive word. But in the Old Greek, it is a do word. It means much strength. It means that doing with much strength. It means having the power. It carries the sense of being able to accomplish, have the power to do, or be strong and be effective. In some uses, it can even mean to overcome or to prevail. And we can see this in the classic verse that we all know very well, that Paul says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And we look very carefully, we can see he's talking in the present tense. In the Old Greek sense, he's talking in the present tense. He's saying, I am doing it right now. I can do all things through God who strengthens me, but he's saying, I am actually doing this right now. At this moment, through him who empowers me to do this thing that I am doing here now. And I'm trying to bring a relation, you will see it later, to what I am saying. So there's a lot of power in this word effectual. But James, in the old Greek, used another word. He used this word ischio and he used this word polou. And the word polou was added in the old Bible to the word ischio. And the word ischio is the word that we took forward and we left out this word. And this word says the following. Though we say powerful, this word says very powerful. Though we say strong, this word says exceedingly strong. And though we say able to accomplish, it means able to accomplish much. Or able to overcome, it means able to overcome much. And prevailing means to prevail, prevailing to overcome whatever stands in our way. Now, I don't know why we've taken those words out of the translations, because if we really add it back in there, and we hardly use the King James Version, we might come to a different understanding. And that's the understanding that I want to bring today. And I spent a lot of time trying to work through this to try and get an understanding of what this is. And this word polou, means large or great, or when it's a person, it means great and mighty. For sound, it means loud. And if it's space, it means far and wide and large. And if it's of time, it means for a long time. So if somebody says, as a doctor, so how long have you been ill? Doc, I've been ill for a long time. So we understand that to be a very long time. It's not a short time. And this is what this word is. It's very descriptive. It says, it actually now describes the other word. It strengthens that previous word, ischio. And then further to that, reading further, I read something else where it says that these words are normally combined with another word. And that word in the Greek is kai. And then they explained to me what this is. And it means and. And it means it was always said the following. Not many bad things. They would say many and bad things. So actually what was probably meant there was effectual and fervent prayers. And I'll get to those words fervent. And I've dealt with the word effectual. Now you see, we make sins happen in our lives every single day through the activities that we do. Now, I believe that God has shown me personally a few years ago something else about the mad dash that we do to get things done. He showed me that I need to pray more and I need to work less. And that maybe I can also add to worry less. So most of us pray after we had tried everything else. We go to the doctor first. We scramble around looking for visible answers to our problems. We go to the drawing board. We promote, we hustle, we do everything, but the one thing that the Bible tells us is the most active resource that we have. Now, the word there is active resource. It is prayer. It is prayer. Now, prayer is not the end. It is the beginning. When is prayer the start of what we ask for? Before we start looking around for things, scramble around to get things or to do things. And maybe our day should start like something like this. Every morning it should start like this. In the beginning of today, I start by making an exceedingly strong petition with intensity of spirit. And I will tell you why those words are like that. Because the first part now is telling us, exceedingly strong. It talks to those two words. It means that the one is building the other one to be stronger, and now I am asking an exceedingly strong petition with an intensity of spirit, because the next word that is used, that James uses, is the word fervent. Now, the word intensity of spirit, when you look at the word fervent, it actually means, we understand it, we all understand this one. It says, I am asking you with a fervent plea. That is the generally understood one. We all know that one, fervent plea. We also all understand that the word fervent means hot or warm. But the definition, according to the dictionary, says heartfelt, emotional, spirited, intensity of spirit, passionate. That's what the word fervent means. So a lot of these words could, in a biblical context, be used. And so the words there should be intensity of spirit. Now, if we compare to verse 17, which just follows on verse 16 there, we stopped at verse 16. Verse 17 says, Elijah was a man just like us. He prayed earnestly. It means with sincere and intense conviction. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3.5 years. And if you compare the two, here's a sentence that says, effectual and fervent prayer, and here's another one that says, Elijah prayed earnestly. And those are two different prayers. So why is that first prayer so important? It seems as if James is trying very hard to convince us of something that he seems to know as a matter of fact. And we can find those facts in the following verses in the Bible. In Jeremiah 29, verses 11 to 13, we are told, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. Then when you will call on me and come to pray to me, I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. With all your heart. In Mark 11, verse 24, we are told, Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And in Romans 12, verse 12, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. And in 1 John 5, verse 14, this is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. Again, you hear a different tense here. You hear the present tense. It's not he will hear us, as we hear as we remember in Acts 10, where Cornelius was praying to God, and he said he sent the angel to him, the vision to him that said to him, Cornelius, your prayer came up as an afterthought to God. And there's a reason why it came up as an afterthought to God, because Cornelius was not a Christian, but we are Christians. We profess Christianity and we live Christianity, and we're saying, so therefore this is in the present tense. It says, this is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. Now, I know in a short time, because I've put my stopwatch on here, that the next section, it might not do most justification of it, but I'm going to try to talk about it, the availeth much, and about the word prayer, so that I can at least try to bring this into context of what I am asking or doing. Now, the word availeth much means In different translations, it means for the effects that the effectual and the fervent prayer will have. The effect that you will have afterwards, due to your effectual and your fervent prayer. The synonyms would be prevail, would be powerful and effective, great, or can accomplish much, as we just read from the New International Version, can accomplish much. These are the words which are described to describe the effects of the prayers of a righteous person. You must also remember that, because the verse says, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. It doesn't say everybody. It says of a righteous man or righteous woman now. We understand that context. It does not say everybody. It could therefore, I want to read the sentence like this. If I had to read that sentence, redo that sentence, I would put it like this. The very powerful, warm, passionate, exceedingly strong petition with intensity of spirit of the righteous man will be very powerful and effective. In fact, I wanted to change that word and I forgot to take my pen and I take out will be, and I want to put the word is. And I'm going to read it again. The very powerful, warm, passionate, exceedingly strong petition with intensity of spirit of the righteous man is very powerful and effective. And it brings into context with what Paul is saying. I am doing all things. I can do all things and I am doing all things. It's in the present. It is happening to me now. We as Christians, that as we do that prayer and we believe and God says, thank me for it once you've asked it, but believe also that you have received it. So when we have received it and when we're doing this, we should be in the knowledge that it is happening to us right now. And do we have that faith? Do we have that understanding that it is happening to us right now as we speak? And that brings me to the word prayer that I haven't touched on yet. You see the word prayer, and I think I've now spoken a lot about prayer, and the more I was doing this, the more I realized, and Brother Derek was saying to me, I thought you were going to go much deeper in there the last time, and now I'm trying to go deeper, and hopefully over time, because the more I'm doing this, the more I see so much of the Lord's hand. The more I am getting to understand God a bit better, the more I look into prayer. What is prayer really? It is the power that is in us. So this word prayer, it means it actually involves personal needs, isn't it? When you pray, when I pray, isn't it that which is personal, that which I think about, which my brain can conjure up, that I can talk about to God? That's personal. So it could also be changed, and that's why I put it in there. It could also be put in the following manner. The very strong, very personal petitions. So the very powerful, warm, passionate, exceedingly strong, very personal petitions with intensity of spirit of the righteous person is very powerful and effective. There's nothing general about those requests. Yeah, we do sometimes say, God bless these people who don't have homes. And we ask God, please protect those who don't have food now. Please provide for them. God, please bless everyone in the world. But those petitions are your special heartaches. When you pray, those are your heartaches. Those are the things which you are concerned about. Those are the things which affect you. And we should learn to be able to put that to God in a proper manner, that which affects us, so that those can be effectual, so that those can be fervent, so that those can at the end availeth much. Do we truly understand the process of prayer, getting onto our knees and getting used to the subservience before God? Being focused and not having one's mind wandering and jumbled? Preparing for your prayers by keeping a list in front of you. And you say, Father, my personal concerns today. I've written them down so that I won't lose track of what I want to tell you. Because you see, the man, I know my mind does wander. I'm talking to God, but my mind wanders. And you say to him, so I've written it down because I don't want my mind to wander when I'm talking to you now. Not even with this preparation. Do we have the really heart-wrenching pleas? Because if we have, they are few. They're not really that intense. They're not often. I remember having had some. And I thank the Lord for it. Tears streaming down my face, sobs, crying, laying my soul bare before God. But you see, it wasn't about the tears or the sobs. It was about the vulnerability. It is coming to that final realization. What is James saying? He's saying, making yourself so vulnerable before God because you've taken everything away from yourself where you are responsible for it. That you are so vulnerable that you are fully at God's grace and God's mercy. And you actually know in your being when you're there, you know that now everything that I have and that I am is not me anymore. It is now God. It's not me. There's nothing about me. I am at His mercy. We know that, but have we experienced that? Have we really felt it? Have we had that heart-wrenching moment when we really knew I am at the Lord's feet and He has power all over me? And the road that He's going to take me on is the road where I am supposed to be going. Good or bad. But He knows in the bad time there's going to be good time. And if it's only good time, then thank you, Lord, for the good times only. But He's promised us there will be the bad times too. So how do we get to being that vulnerable? To being that exposed to His mercy? How do we take ourselves and get to that point? I think that if one had not been to that point, you have not, and I could be very wrong, have not really experienced the power of God. If you'd not been at that point, where He takes charge of everything that must go forward for you. You see, I was at that point. You remember there was a time I was working away? And I was at that point, and I locked myself in a room for two weeks. Because my job was also to expose things which people did not want to be exposed. And I was in trouble because people were putting me in trouble because of what I was exposing. And I would sometimes just go down the road to get a loaf of bread and some fresh milk. And I would lock myself in that room. And I said, Lord, and I prostrate myself. I said, Lord, I am yours. You do with me what you want to do with me. And I was there at that moment. And I tell you, it took 2 weeks. And I was in turmoil. And one morning I woke up. And I had total peace. And I also had a knowledge with that total peace. That knowledge was, go home, pack up your bags and go home. And since then, the Lord has been taking care of us. Daily, He takes care of us. I have had that experience we must get as Christians. If you don't get to that experience, that which James is trying to teach us, he is saying, intense yearnings, very strong pleading, and crying out to the Lord begin with complete openness. Not being afraid to go before Him and to shield ourselves. To open yourself to God. Not to be protective against things. Not having an inner resistance. Before our petitions can become exceedingly strong. So how do we get to this place of complete vulnerability? Perhaps it starts with the obedience of a life broken before Him. Willing to accept any answer that serves His purpose. I'm going to repeat that. Willing to accept any answer that serves God's purpose. And it's actually a paradox. You see, we come to God because I'm talking about myself to Him. God, I'm talking to you. You must please help me. You must do this and this for the others. And I thank you and hallowed be thy name, etc. And then at the end I realized, but it's not about me at all. I went with myself, but it's not about me. It begins with my needs, but prayer shifts the focus from me to God so that my needs become the avenue for His purposes. My need becomes the avenue for Him to explore for His purposes. Imagine when I don't tell Him what my needs are. Imagine I don't take time to talk to Him. Now that cannot happen if I don't empty myself before God. So in conclusion, James's verse is one of those verses which should cause us intense emotional agony. I know I should be exuberant at the thought of the power of prayer, but why am I not always? And the question is, do I fall short of what James has in mind? Are our prayers anything like the prayers he describes them to be? No, the opposite is probably true. Our prayers are struggles with myself, with my past, with my trust in God. It's hard to imagine that they are powerfully effective, and that leads me to think that maybe am I a righteous man? If I do not have that effectual, fervent prayer that availeth much, then am I a righteous man? What can I do about it? Perhaps that answer is also the struggle. It's also a struggle, but it's not really that difficult. The struggle is in getting to it, because the answer is prayer. The answer is getting into the right prayer. And that is the answer of effectual, fervent prayer, which will accomplish much in your life and in my life. This is where I want to end. If you feel you have any need for prayer tonight, or that you need to connect or reconnect with God, we have the elders here who can pray for you. Please step forward as we sing our hymn of invitation.